Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. Thank you so much for joining us here today as we watch the Hunter Burton Memorial Lorcana Championship. This was the second annual event, the 11th year for the Hunter Burton Memorial itself, and we are so thankful that 20 Lore Pro was invited back for this year's tournament. This year we had over 70 competitors compete in the Lorcana tournament, along with many side events and freebies that were raffled and given out all throughout the day. We want to thank our Enchanted Level sponsors Cloud Collectibles, Random Encounter Games, The Card Haven, Pixelborn, Mothership Books and Games, and Pixel Haven. Thanks to them and many within the community, we were able to raise over $7,500 to support 988, the U.S. National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you or a loved one are experiencing suicidal ideation or are going through a mental health crisis, reach out to 988. There's support available 24/7, and there are professionals who want to help you find the right resources that you need. Again, this is 20 Lore Pro, and I'm Sir Ashtown, and thank you so much for joining us. We also want to thank Miguel over at Diamond Ink Apparel for doing the beautiful artwork on the Lorcana Championship playmats that you see before you on the tournament screen. If you want to get yours non-serialized, you can head on over to 20lore.pro to our merch section. Also, there will be a link in the description to get yours today. We want to thank GFQ for printing those playmats and for being a long-time partner alongside 20 Lore Pro. Thank you, GFQ Underground, for printing those mats. And here we are going on to the next round.
Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. We are here at the Hunter Burton Memorial Lorcana Championship for our day 2. We're going to have some rounds of Swiss for y'all today, followed by the top 8. We're really excited to be here. I'm Sir Ashtown, and joining me is Liam from the Illumateers. So glad to have you again here today, Liam.
I'm always glad to cast alongside you, Wesley, and the 20 Lore team. You guys do a fantastic job, especially this event every year, this charity event that you have a huge part in putting on. So I'm just excited to be here.
Well, as you can see from the sun, we are in a convention center. We are being blinded, so we may not show too much of the camera today until it clears out, but we are here giving you the play-by-play, the analysis, all the action. It'll be coming here very soon. We have gotten a chance to talk with some of our players from match 1. Liam, could you tell us just a little bit about them and who we're going to be watching?
Well, I'm not familiar with. Very familiar with one of the players. I'm not familiar with the player on the left so much. I think you know him from the Dallas area, but I am really excited about one of the competitors we're going to see. His name is Asher. He's one of our younger competitors here at Hunter Burton, 14 years old, and we saw him yesterday on stream with his Amethyst Steel mid-range deck be very aggressive against a Steel Sapphire deck. Very talented young player, and doing very well with a good chance of making the top cut. So I'm excited to watch this match.
Yeah, he played against Logan, I think in round 3 is what we watched, and that was a tight game. I talked to Logan that night. He said that Asher played big or giant Cobra 3 times. And I mean, that is just some free lore you cannot stop.
Yeah, bounced it, played it again. It was a really well played match, knife's edge, but yeah, very talented young player and a great game yesterday, and I anticipate a great game today here in round 3 or round 4, but round 1 today.
I think it's round 5.
Round 5.
Yeah, round 5.
Round 5.
Yeah, there you go. I know it all doubles together when you're here on multiple day events.
Yeah, it's like round 1, round 5.
We thought we had so much more time at the convention center, and sometimes you just never know. And
yeah,
well, we're here. We're so glad to be here. And his opponent is Chase, a well-known player here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I have played him personally several times. He's normally been known to play Ruby Amethyst. He's a great pilot with those lists. I have never beaten him, even though I've brought different builds. And he tends to get in the top placement every time he plays in a tournament. So excited to see all the action. We're going to head on over to match 1 to see that action. We'll be there in just a moment.
Let's do it.
And we are live here in round 5, match 1. Asher piloting his Amethyst Steel list versus Chase, who is the Hellsingus. He is piloting a Emerald Steel list. Looks like we
Now I'm trying to squint here with the sun, get a feel for what's going on here. So we do have the Robin Hood on turn 1 here. We know Asher does run the Robin Hood shift line. That's really the only reason to run the baby Robin Hood most of the time. So that's available. Hey, look at that! It's a giant cobra signed by.
Oh.
He asked me to sign that card after the match yesterday.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, that gives it extra. It doesn't do anything. But no, super fun to see that played. Giant Cobra coming down here. Now, Asher, every time he plays the Giant Cobra, he takes advantage of that discard, gets that 2 lore. He knows that most of the time in this control-heavy meta right now, he's going to the goal for him is to be the beatdown, to try to push the lore total early. If his opponent does establish control of the board, he can finish it out with some reach cards like another Giant Cobra or a Goat. So he really wants to push the lore total, but we always see him discarding to that Cobra. And I think one of the reasons that we see Friends worked in here, not only is it a good card, but again, it gives him those extra cards to pump into the Cobra every time it's played. So the Cobra there forcing him to discard a card and then drawing him to cards with Friends. And we're going to draw another card here with a Rabbit. So plenty of cards in his hand to keep the momentum going.
And again, we are here live at the Hunter Burton Memorial. We are providing education and understanding really about 988. It is the U.S. National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you or a loved one are going through a mental health crisis, reach out to 988. They're available 24/7. We also want to thank our Enchanted Level sponsors with Cloud Collectibles, Random Encounter Games, Motherships Books and Games in Austin, Pixelborn, and the Card Haven. Thank y'all so much for your support, as well as Pixel Haven.
Well, this game has swung here in the last turn. You know, Asher pushing the lore early, getting some early board presence there. On the other side, though, this is set up really quickly here with some well-statted characters for the early game and some high lore characters with those Smees. So what we have, a couple Smees here, each with 2 lore, 3/3 stat line, which is really good. Of course, one of the drawbacks is at the end of the turn, if Smee is exerted, he takes a damage unless you have a captain in play. Well, lucky for, I can't say the name. I'm going to say Logan. He does have a captain in play with that John Silver. John Silver, Greedy Treasure Seeker, is a card that gains 1 resist and 1 lore for each location you have in play. So with that Hidden Cove, getting advantage of those stats. Off the board now, but we see one of the things that this Emerald Steel deck is trying to do. It's not your traditional discard package that we've seen in run recently with it looks like with the Diablos and the Prince Johns and a lot of that, which you've seen putting hand pressure on, but it's more of a pirate location synergy based deck that it looks like can be pretty aggressive with these early Smees and then the Prince John getting extra off those locations. So lucky for Asher with Elsa coming down and some other cards managing to clear off some of that pressure. It's interesting because Asher, I think his game plan here, he generally has wanted to be the beatdown most of yesterday and today. We do see Diablo come down on the board here and move over to that Cove. But in this matchup now, with Logan going wide there with some of those high lore characters forced into the control role, which is kind of a shift from where he wants to be. So now having to think about controlling some of those high lore threats and that Diablo rather than pushing the lore total like he wants to. So at some point here, Asher is going to want to try to establish a bit of board control and then get back into the driver's seat because I think with this Emerald Steel, or I'm sorry, this Amethyst Steel deck, if Asher can't push the lore total as high as he wants to early, inevitability eventually is with the Emerald Steel deck with cards like Diablo and others, if left unchecked, can really allow the Emerald Steel deck to run away with the game. So we do have Fox come down here, trying to figure out what to challenge. I mean, we could go into the Smee. Well, I think the Hidden Cove might be where we go, but let's see. Nope, we're going to trade with the Smee, get that off the board, and pass back over.
This is one of those instances with Giant Cobra as an Amethyst Steel pilot. He may want to double think trying to discard a card to gain that 2 lore, because when you're piloting against Emerald Steel, they may have a small discard package, but even just that, having lost 2 cards, one to yourself and one to your opponents, can be incredibly brutal on the resource game here, and that is what's really going to make this game have a huge difference.
That's true. You know, we early in Lorcana discard history, there were decks which were trying to force you into top deck mode in like turn 3 or 4. Decks with Bucky went back when he was the scourge of the game, that pesky Squirrel. Nowadays, we don't see decks trying to force that discard super early. There are ways to force that really, really early discard pressure and make you discard your whole hand, but it's not really a common strategy. So what you see instead are decks that try to force you into talk mode in the mid game, or have cards that selectively hit you later on to empty out your last couple cards, your last 2 or 3 cards, and really kind of break your back there in the mid and end game. So that's a great point. Discarding cards to Cobra kind of helps your opponent in their game plan of forcing you into top deck mode in the mid game. But here we have another location established. We have 2 hidden coves on the board now. 3 hidden coves on the board. I stand corrected with that Diablo there chilling out in one. Not a lot on their own, but they're not going to give you any lore. But what we are doing is establishing a way to give all your characters some extra stats. But then that that John Silver Greedy Treasure Seeker now, if we play one of those, will gain resist +3 and +3 lore with those 3 locations in play. So that card becomes brutal if we manage to get one on the board with that many hidden coves in play.
Yeah, that is such a unique situation to be in, where you're playing locations which you wouldn't want this many of them, but now you're helping John Silver being able to quest for more, and also allowing it to where if one of your hidden coves is taken out, you've got another 1 or 2 to where your characters can move to. So your character is going to have a stronger toughness to be able to survive longer on the board.
And this is a really, really tough board state here. We have 3 Diablos in play, 3 hidden coves. Those Diablos, if left unchecked, are going to draw Logan 3 cards every turn. And here, playing friends from the other side there with the rabbit, that Diablo could trigger again. I don't think I saw Logan choose to use the Diablo there. I may have missed it as I was watching Asher draw. But in this Amethyst Steel deck, or in every deck, in any Amethyst deck, part of your game plan in the mid game is to drive your resource total with cards like Rabbit, cards like Friends. You really need to keep your hand, going, and that works against you when your opponent has Diablos established and exerted on the board. So with those extra cards, looks like we've established another Robin Hood on the board. That shift line is available for Asher if he has it. And now back over to Logan with his 3 coves and two birds.
Yeah, Chase here, Helsing, having done a great job here, really having this board state with these locations, these double Diablos, having them spread out amongst the locations themselves. So if you take out one, the other one still is going to be there on the other location. And we see Asher here. I mean, it's 7-4. He's trying to come back with board presence. If he can have this shift Robin Hood line, these else's available, things to tap down, even play a Cobra if it's not having discarded a card, doesn't matter. Having a 4/4 body at this point can be a big difference at this board state.
Absolutely. I apologize to Chase for mispronouncing your name here. I was so used to Asher and Logan yesterday, and I'm scared to say, I'm going to try it, Hellingist. Chase, I've got it now. Another fun card here in Space, Pete Space Pirate Captain. This is a 5/5 who gains resist 1 when he's exerted. Well, actually, he gives all pirates resist 1 when he's exerted, but he is a pirate, so he gives himself that resist 1. He also prevents your opponent from singing songs, I believe. So one of the fun cards from Pete Space Pirate Captain is one of those fun cards from the new set that we see worked into to Emerald Steel, these dual cost cards.
Yeah, I love seeing just these dual colored cards come into play just like this, because it is going to affect the way that we see the set 7 meta. It's going to make a splash, and we're seeing it here in this tournament with these dual colored cards making a difference.
And Asher having answers here, getting rid of that Pete with Along Came Zeus before it can be exerted and protect itself. Clearing off one of those Diablos, some of these hidden coves, just trying to chip away at the board state that Chase has over there. Getting rid of those Diablos is going to be key eventually, because it keeps juicing Chase's hand every turn. Here we have a 7 Dwarves Mine, another location that's going to augment some of the other cards we see in the deck, including that John Silver. We move the Diablo over there. When you move a character there, we know you can deal, for the first time each turn, you can deal 1 damage to a chosen character, or 2 damage if that's a knight. I haven't seen any knights yet, I don't think. But we will do 1 damage with that Diablo and remove the last damage on that Smee there, sending him to the discard pile.
I'm getting flashbacks from seeing these DD hole lists where they had double mines and they're going back and forth. And you could do that here even with the Diablo, taking it off to the cove, then moving it back. or vice versa if it's the only character left on board and you need that extra damage. We'll see if that ends up being something he needs to do. Hopefully not.
With all that card draw on those Diablos, Chase managing to establish quite a large ink pool over there. There we have Strength of Raging Fire coming down, dealing 2 damage to the Robin Hood, getting that off the board. Chase doesn't want to see that shift if he can avoid it. Back over to Asher. Asher's going to draw. Chase will draw 2 cards from those Diablos. And it's just so tough when you're trying to draw into your answers and you're just giving your opponent more cards each time. And 2 for 1 just feels extra bad. Oh, but fascinating. Look at this.
Yeah, the new Donald.
This is the Kingdom Hearts Donald, Flustered Sorcerer, I believe. Fun little card, well statted at 5/6 with 3 lore, so it can close out games. But importantly, its ability is one that this is my first time seeing it in competitive play, or play, period.
I haven't seen it either.
Forcing Chase to have to hit 25 lore to win the game instead of 20 lore. So right now, where Chase had 9 lore to go to close this thing out, now he has 14 to go. So fun card to see played. 7 cost uninkable. I don't think you'll see it too often, but look at that. Let's see what work Asher can do with it here. Crucially, that 5 strength, though, will allow him to do some location clearance, I think. But unfortunately, without it being evasive, we're not going to be able to remove those Diablos. So 2 damage going on with Let the Storm Rage on. Playing that, most likely to draw another card, get a little damage on it. See what else Chase has available here.
There may even be a point that not even using the Donald Duck to challenge in, just to make it to where it's 25. Oh, double mine.
Yeah, double mine. So over there, that's a Daisy Duck. Daisy Duck is this pirate is not a card that I've seen terribly often. Full disclosure, I gotta double check her ability before I say it wrong.
It says whenever one of your pirate characters quests while at a location, draw a card.
Fascinating. So yeah, not a card that I've seen terribly often, but works well with pirates and locations, and we have a lot of locations on board. We also have a pirate on board because Daisy Duck herself is a pirate captain. We also have synergy with Smee there if that comes into play, but 2 mines on the board, that is a bit rough because we can bounce characters, can move characters back and forth between the 2. So it's 2 damage available each turn now to start blasting things. Just a rough board state. A lot of willpower over on Chase's side of the board for Asher to deal with. Looks like we're going to get rid of that Hidden Cove and then a Fist Bump. That'll remove those Diablos.
Oh, and having that Donald back in your hand. Oh, and there's that shift line he would have had available.
Yeah, let's see. So we still have those mines out there, able to do some control. Asher getting 6 strength on the board to try to challenge locations. Let's see what else we have. We do have the shift. Okay, so Pete, Space Pirate Captain, we've seen a lot of people work in the morphs now to shift that in some of these decks as an added benefit. There's a lot of shift characters available in Steel with the Beast Tragic Heroes, the Robin Hoods. The Space Pirate is another card that can choose morph, but there are also some good Pete shift targets, including Games Referee. And the other card that we saw, Pete Pirate Scoundrel, is a fun 1-drop that does some item control against this item heavy meta that we've seen, but serving here as a shift target for Pete Space Pirate Captain. Pete's going to come down, move over to that mine. Now, Pete is a 5/5. He gives himself resist 1 while he's reserved, and that Daisy resist 1. So all sorts of synergy setting up going on here. So both pirates have resist 1, and Daisy says that whenever a pirate quests while at a location, you can draw a card. So both pirates at locations can each draw a card each turn, each have resist 1. There's just all sorts of location and pirate synergy going on here. Wow. What a fun build.
Yeah, this is not the traditional Emerald Steel. A lot of synergy here, just like you're saying, Liam, and I'm loving seeing this. Asher here with the Donald Duck, increasing that lore count for the win.
Yeah, and Asher, I mean, look at the impact of this resist here. Daisy sitting there as a 3/3 would be vulnerable to that Robin Hood or on the challenge, but with the resist 1 that Pete Space Pirate Captain is giving her, unable to be banished by that Robin Hood. So just that resist making all the difference here. The question is, what's the order of operations here? Do I double challenge in? It looks like that's what we're going to do. We're going to trade the snake. We're going to do 2 damage with the Robin Hood, gain 2 lore off the banishing in that challenge, and also draw a card off Robin Hood's ability.
Wow, that was a tough challenge. I mean, that Daisy really messed up the math on a lot of that.
It is, but yeah, it's so tough. You have a lot of choices here for what you can remove. You can't remove the Pete because normally you would be able to, but you have a resist 1 each challenge, and so Pete's not vulnerable there. You could take out a mine, but here you at least get rid of the 2 lore, and you also get rid of the ability for Chase to draw 2 cards off the quest next turn. So tough challenge. Doing a 2-for-1 feels bad, but at the very least you get a card off of it with that Robin Hood, and then you also get a couple lore. Having that 5/6 on the board is again, that resist is just so painful. 5/6. I mean, 5 is the perfect strength to take out Pete normally, but with himself giving him self resist 1, it's just not quite enough. So let's see. And there we are establishing another one of those John Silvers. That John Silver gets +1 lore and resist for each location on the board. We have 3 locations, so a 4 lore quester there. And not only that, but he has resist when he's another resist from Pete Space Pirate Captain when he's exerted. So just resist all over the place. Pete Space Pirate Captain bouncing back and forth between the 7 Dwarves mines, doing 1 damage each time to that Donald Duck, getting it just a little bit lower, passing the turn back to Asher. Of course, Chase here at 21 lore. This is the first time, perhaps, in competitive Lorcana history, I can't talk about the last couple of weeks, where you have a player sitting at 21 lore and the game is not over yet because you have a Donald Duck preventing your opponent from winning the game. So I'm going to say it for the first time maybe in Lorcana history, Chase with 21 lore passes the turn back over to Asher. So now that Donald Duck, though, if removed from the board, Chase will instantly win the game. So Asher here with an Along Came Zeus trying to figure out, I think, where to drop it. Again, that Pete has resist. That John Silver has resist plus a bajillion with those locations and Space Pirate Captain exerted. So dealing 5 to Nottingham just for fun, and we're gonna scoop here before passing the turn back over.
And what an amazing game 1.
Goodness gracious.
That was amazing to watch. I mean, the synergy from Chase's deck between the pirates, the locations, all the card draw that he was having. Asher, we saw yesterday, likes to go wide, try to challenge him, but those locations were just giving the extra toughness, allowing Chase's characters to stay alive longer. Really impressive.
Yeah, that was wild. You can't see the booth. I'm just staring at Wesley, like trying to think about this pirate deck. Ton of fun. Not your traditional Emerald Steelist, as you said. Just the synergies with locations with pirates. This is a deck to watch, I think. There's just a ton going on there, and the thing about locations is they don't do a lot for you in terms of your ability to control the board. I think initially when they were revealed in Inklands, a lot of people thought they were going to be game breaking, or some people thought they were going to be game breaking. But really, like, establishing them on the board is good, but they don't damage anything back, and like they really don't give you a lot of momentum. You lose tempo when you play them, and so they've been worked into decks sparingly. You see McDuck Manor, Queen's Castles, libraries, I think, is some of the most common locations. Hidden Coves with their ability, but yeah. But the thing about them is, if you throw a bunch of them on the board at the same time, their willpower for their cost is usually very high. And so it forces your opponent to devote a significant number of resources to deal with them, or you risk letting them accumulate. And where normally it's only a problem when locations accumulate on the board because of the lore that they offer. So for example, like Queen's Castle or McDuck Manor giving you 2, 4, 6 lore a turn, and you have to deal with them because of the lore game. In this deck, if you let them sit, if you let cards like Hidden Cove sit, even though they're not accumulating lore, eventually this deck is going to drop the Daisy Duck. It's going to drop the John Silver or other cards that synergize really well with locations. And all of a sudden, those locations, which were kind of innocuous, are giving one of your characters like extraordinary abilities. And so you have to throughout the game, even though the locations might seem a bit useless or not a huge threat, you have to deal with them, or else eventually your opponent's going to drop one of these John Silvers and just, you know, break your back with a 4 lore quester with resist, you know, resist 3. So it's fascinating. I will say, as I'm thinking through this deck, I feel like it can be slow because you have to establish locations. I think one of the keys to victory against a mid-range and aggressive deck is establishing cards like Smee on the board on turn 2, a high-statted card that you can either push your lore total with and force your opponent to respond, or do a little board control yourself. So I do think that that's one of the keys, because Asher, you know, Asher wants to be the aggressive deck, and if left unchecked, if allowed to push his lore total high before we get those locations and that endgame established, you know, Asher could pull this out pretty easily. So I do think the key for Chase here is trying to get one of those high-statted early characters like Smee on the board to buy the time in order to set up those synergies. Sorry, Wesley, I just talked for like...
No, you're good.
I was kind of exploring my mind.
It's exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a list, you know, set 7, we're brand new here into it. And so we're going to see some new deck builds, and glad that we got to see it kind of here first at Hunter Burton Memorial's Lorcana Challenge. Again, we want to thank our Enchanted level sponsors with Random Encounter Games, Cloud Collectibles, Pixel Haven, Mothership Books and Games in Austin, Pixelborn, and the Card Haven. They have been huge supporters of today's event. We want to thank them so much as they provide support to educate the community about 988. 988 is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you or a loved one are going through suicidal ideation or a mental health crisis, reach out to 988. They're available 24/7. I was talking about this before the tournament as we were providing education, but finding that outlet or that person that you can trust to share your burdens with is so important. And here we go in the Lorcana community, sharing wonderful moments with Fire the Cannons.
Yeah, this is a fantastic start for both decks, I think. Looking over at Chase's side, he had the first turn Hook, he had the second turn Smee. I think I do see that in hand. I got a quick look, and that's what he wants. There it is. So that's what he wants on turn 1 and 2. But Asher, with the Fire the Cannons, a card that's been around since set 1, has been in and out of the meta, but worked in sometimes to do with early game threats. And here it is, used to great effect to prevent that, that Captain Hook from sitting around early. But we do have the Smee on turn 2. That's exactly what Chase wanted to do to buy himself the time. Asher, however, with that Diablo, able to quest a little bit, and of course we'll get a card when it is banished. Let's see what we have, though, for turn 3. We spent an entire turn dealing with that Hook. Looks like a Friends from the other side into the Inkwell, followed by the Giant Cobra. We'll discard a card here. It's the Rabbit to gain 2 lore and quest for 1 with the Diablo. So definitely prioritizing the lore game here, saying I'm going to quest with this Diablo every single turn and gain a lore unless you take a turn to banish it, giving me a card in the process. So that Cobra not only represents 2 lore, but it's very well statted for this point in the game. A 4/4 for 3 could definitely answer that Smee if it is exerted, and also do significant damage to a location if it drops. So not only representing, you know, 2 lore closer to victory here for Asher in line with his game plan, but a card that can deal with some early threats on the board. Let's see what the response is here. Chase thinking through what he wants to do. I don't have a good... All right, getting a look at the hand here. We see the games referee in there. Not a card that's super great at the moment. It does establish a little bit of board presence that looks like that's what we're going to do. So that'll prevent any actions from being played on Asher's turn, either perhaps singing Friends from the other side, which is something we've seen Asher do with the Cobra before, or some sort of removal. But instead, we have the Genie getting dropped here, 2/4, one of the scourges of the last meta. It's card 2/4 evasive, and we'll draw a card for Asher here. A card that definitely, I'm doing the math here. I don't think there's any, other than Diablos, there's not another answer for an evasive character other than some sort of targeted removal. So Genie able to quest for 2 each turn from this point forward, unless Chase draws into the removal that he needs to get rid of it. And then questing with the Cobra and the Diablo there. So this is definitely Asher's game plan here. Push the lore total and get within striking distance of a Cobra or a Goat. So things are going well there. On the other side, we do see that John Silver in hand. There are some locations as well. Trying to think through the right way to go here. While we wait for Chase to play, well, let's see what he plays, and then I'll talk a little about the meta here. Oh, so we do have a shift. Pete Space Pirate Captain there, shifting on that game's referee. That's a 5/5 now, exerted with resist 1. So it'll take 3 damage from that Cobra. That's, I mean, if you're going to do board control, that's a great way to do it. I mentioned earlier, games referee not going to do a whole ton of good here at that point in the game, unless it's a shift target for that Space Pirate Captain, who now can exert the turn he comes into play and deal with that Cobra. So fun play there. That Genie, of course, it doesn't have evasive though, so that Genie, of course, able to quest here with impunity. And now Asher going to rebuild his board a little bit. And it is a Fox, going to bounce that Genie, challenge into that Pete, remove it. And now Chase with the only character on board. Nope, fire the cannons there into that Smee. So Smee, of course, takes a damage whenever he is exerted at the end of the turn, unless there's a captain in play. Last turn we did have a captain in play with Space Pirate Captain. But Smee now, if he exerts at all, is subject to removal. So Asher efficiently using his ink, that last ink there, to put 2 on that Smee. And now it cannot do anything with impunity unless we manage to establish another captain.
What a back and forth that we're watching here with the board state. Asher having a little bit of a lore gain here, but no board state.
It's a brilliant, brilliant game. All right, so Chase, I think, double check. We do have 1 card left in hand. So we've established that Daisy pirate captain there. Daisy says whenever there's a pirate at a location and it quests, you get to draw a card. So dropping that Daisy and a location in the same turn. Now Asher knows we've got 2 pirates on the board that can move over to that location and quest, drawing cards. So removing some will be useful. Then we have that second fire of the cannons into Smee. Smee, bumbling mate, getting hit by 2 pirates cannons, which is interesting flavor, I guess. Smee with the flavor text on the card, fire the cannons, kind of fascinating there. So the Daisy Duck will move over to the Hidden Cove, quest, drawing a card for Chase. Asher, though, has pushed his lore total up to 8.
Now he's got this Genie, which is great at questing. It's got evasive, but that Daisy Duck is there to survive unless Asher has another card, or like removal or an Elsa maybe to follow up.
Let's see. One thing I'll talk about while we wait for this to develop a little bit, I want to briefly talk about the meta here. I think that might be of interest to people watching. We saw the last few weeks the item control blue steel deck gain a lot of popularity. It's a very dominant deck, and so what I think that has done here at the meta, at least at Hunter Burton, is it is warped around that particular deck. You're either playing that deck or you're planning to play against that deck, because if left unchecked, it's just going to dominate the tournament here. So a lot of players either leaning into it, or if they can't afford the money for that deck, because it is rather expensive, building aggressive variants of existing decks or just straight up aggro decks and planning to run underneath that blue steel deck. As a result, it's a lot more of an aggressive meta here than we've seen, I think, previously in a lot of other tournaments. I have seen barely Ruby Sapphires out there. I've seen barely any, though. Not many people running it at all. So it's been fascinating to watch what that deck has done to the tournament and the meta here. And I'm interested to see if that's replicated in other events across the country and across the world this weekend.
Well, we've seen, just like you were saying, Liam, both Aaron and Zan are running the exact 60 Sapphire Steel list. They've been testing together. They've really enjoyed that deck, and they're taking it here today to a lot of success. I think Aaron was playing in feature match 2 against Kapu 4-0, and Zan was 3-1. So that deck is very strong, especially with a great pilot.
Absolutely.
Here we are with quite an interesting board state. We've got the Diablo along with the Daisy on Hidden Cove, which has damage on it. That Merlin Crab was able to come down, give a character Challenger 3, allowing that Genie to challenge in for 5. And Mr. Smee on Asher's side of the board.
Yeah, Chase managing to leverage that pirate ability, that Daisy Pirate Captain ability to draw, a few cards here, giving him some extra gas here. And so Asher's definitely gonna want to think about removing that Daisy Duck next turn. The thing about this deck, when you look at it, is these pirates just get better if they're left unchecked, because there's a lot of different pirate synergy, a lot of different location synergy. So Any of these cards are kind of innocuous on their own, but if Chase drops 1 or 2 cards, all of a sudden they become huge threats. See, so we are establishing another Diablo here, moving over to the Cove. And then the other Diablo will challenge into the Genie, that Cove giving it the extra willpower it needs to survive. So now that Diablo with 2 damage counters on it will be susceptible to removal if that Cove is removed. That Cove with 5 damage now is easily challenged. So the Crab will sing Friends from the other side, drawing Asher 2 cards. But because of that Exerted Diablo, will also draw Chase 2 cards. And then we'll move the Cove. So one thing I'll note here, I mean, a little bit of a sequence mistake here from Asher. It happens in these feature matches sometimes where you get excited. And I posted a video on our channel recently where I did the exact same thing playing against Aaron Rubin. And Aaron's like, hey, are you sure you don't want to remove the Diablo first before you draw cards? Because as players, you train yourself to draw cards first, to get the information first, and then make your turn decisions. And so you're almost hardwired that way. Diablo changes that calculus, though, where you have to take some action first, and usually you want to deal with the Diablo before drawing cards. And so Asher giving Chase a couple extra cards there, but again, it's how we're wired to play. So that's, that is what it is. So removing that now, now we have a lot more manageable board state over on Chase's side of the board with that Daisy Duck and that Diablo sitting there. No location, but there's the location. I imagine we're going to slide those characters over here, giving Diablo a little extra protection, and then getting that Daisy the ability to quest and draw a card. And to highlight that point, well, let's see what we do here. Oh, another Daisy. Oh my goodness. So now that Daisy questing will represent 2 cards. We'll draw a card from that Daisy's trigger, and then we should draw a card from the other Daisy's trigger. So that's 2 cards off that quest. Drawing 2 cards, and to highlight the point that you made earlier on, and we just highlighted there with drawing cards first, we have the extra ink available. We may move something over, like we may make other decisions, but Chase very careful to move just the 1 Daisy to the Hidden Cove, quest with it, get the maximum number of cards he can in the turn so far, and then we'll make the decision to slide cards over. There are, I think, other players, less experienced players who, you play the Cove and then you just move everything to it and then you do what you're going to do. But moving characters 1 at a time here to maximize use of resources.
Do you think it's interesting to see that Asher did have the opportunity where the Hidden Cove was not on the board and chose not to challenge into that Daisy? Maybe wanted to save some of his characters so that way he can challenge in without having less characters on the board. We'll have to see how that pays off for him.
Here, so we do play the Robin Hood here, full cost, no shift. Robin Hood, a 2-lore quester. Now, not super well statted on the strength side for the mid game, but super high willpower, so should be able to do some damage. So let's see what we do here. There's a bit of a decision here. You have a couple cards available to quest. The Hidden Cove, though, making it so Daisy can't be banished with 1 challenge. So what we've done here is we've challenged into the Daisy, the Crab being removed, giving Challenger to the Smee, making it Challenger 3, enabling us to challenge into the Cove and remove that.
Maybe missed it. Did the Daisy have a damage on it?
I didn't see the damage counter on the Daisy. Yeah, that's why I was a little confused for a moment, because I thought that line would be not available. Maybe
I guess if it was going to follow up after getting the Cove away anyways, it would have gotten removed regardless.
Yeah, you're right. It may have been a line you take anyway.
Yeah.
But I didn't see the damage counter on it, so that's okay.
I guess it all equals out, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I might have missed it. So here, challenging into the Diablo, drawing a card for Asher. Asher's pushed himself to 9 lore now. And this pirate deck's so oppressive. I mean, the problem is, Asher has done a masterful job here throughout the game, just dealing with threat after threat after threat after threat. The problem is that Chase has managed to use a lot of those threats, like Diablo and the Daisy Duck, to just keep drawing cards. And so he just keeps dropping, threats on the board, forcing Asher to respond. And it's tough going. Along came Zeus here being played to get rid of that Smee. And now we have another Pete Space Pirate Captain there. We'll note the synergy again with the Daisy Duck Pirate Captain. Both pirates now having resist +1. So now we have the Exerted Diablo and 2 pirates with resist 1. and just pointing out again what difference that makes. If you're able to swing in here with the Robin Hood and banish the Daisy, get 2 lore off of it, that's pretty big. But we will be able to do the similar thing. So here we have Robin Hood getting Challenger 3 from that crab. Exactly enough to challenge into that Pete, remove that, get that off the board. And again, just a masterful job dealing with the threats here. Asher is somehow, with less card draw, managed to keep Chase at bay. But Chase just drawing card after card, playing a Pete Games referee there, preventing any sort of targeted removal. Chase following it up with a referee of his own. He says, if I can't play actions, you can't play actions. And then Diablo taking a peek at the hand, showing us an Elsa the 5th Spirit, I think is the only card in hand there. Not a terrible card to have in this scenario and at this point in the game. And so now there's all sorts of math that Chase has to do here. That Elsa is a bit of a threat and it'll definitely be able to deal with that Diablo. And then you also have, if you make anything susceptible to banishing the crab, as in, let's say Pete, pirate referee, let's hypothetically say you quest because you have nothing else to do with it here, or the Daisy quest. You make it vulnerable to the crab, which then give Challenger to something else. Although I guess with everything that Asher has on the board, I guess we have the stats that we need to deal with anything. So yeah, anything that Chase makes vulnerable here, is susceptible to being banished.
Yeah,
but then
that in this instance, because anything that challenges into that Robin Hood's going to have to be gone, but it does prevent Asher from challenging back next turn and gaining 2 lore with it. So,
well, and here's where the Challenger comes into play here, and why we're doing so much math, because the Elsa is going to come down, and Elsa with that 2 willpower doesn't have the ability to. Well, I guess you're going to want to challenge the Diablo anyway. Yeah, there's just a lot of math to be done here. The Robin Hood getting banished here, drawing a card for Asher.
Oh, and he nets a card off of the Robin Hood and on the draw, so he does get 2 cards regardless of losing the Diablo to this Elsa. So he netted the most card draws that he could, at least with the Diablo, before it gets banished.
Yep, and we'll exert that Diablo there. We'll banish that Diablo. Yeah, I was trying to do the math with the Elsa, like we can remove Pete's and things like that, but the Elsa has to deal with the Diablo, so that was really off the table. The Elsa, though, exerting the Diablo, making that vulnerable to a challenge. And let's see.
Yeah, I don't hate challenging in here, preventing the shift line, so you have a Diablo that's ready to draw cards, taking that off the table, just in case he does draw it from the 3 cards he's going to get to see. 2 from the Diablo triggers, 1 from the card for draw for turn.
Yeah, let's see the answer that Chase has here. Asher, again, managing to control the board here, keep himself going. It looks like 2 cards in hand. We do have the Along Came Zeus, which wasn't available last turn due to Pete, but it is available this turn. And then
I believe a Daisy.
And the other is that Daisy. So Along Came Zeus coming down, dealing with that Elsa, removing that from the board, and then we will play the Daisy. I think Chase is in top deck mode now, trading, clearing Asher's board, leaving the Daisy there, which again on its own is a 2 lore quester. But if Chase top decks a location, all of a sudden that's card draw as well. But a great answer here with Calhoun. Now questing with that Daisy at all becomes, and then a Pete Games referee preventing any action. So not a terrible answer here, but a location off the top, which, oh, there it is, a location off the top. We are going to play,
Wow.
yeah, that Nottingham there, move the Daisy deck over. That's exactly like the kind of top deck that Chase wanted. Now that Daisy can quest and draw a card, it is vulnerable to the Calhoun, but Chase needs more cards here. And so we've managed to drop a 1 lore location on the board and quest for 2, pushing the lore total a bit higher. Great draw there, drawing into a Pete Games referee. So if we draw into any sort of targeted removal or a friend from the other side, that's not available here. A great answer from Chase, the kind of turn that he wanted. And let's see what the answer is from Asher here.
I really think Asher on his last turn, you talk about a really great turn, having a Calhoun to challenge and a Pete to prevent anything from being played. That was a great turn from him. 13 to 12 here. This is so close, and this is tight gameplay.
Yeah, and that Calhoun, so critical to draw last turn, because not only is an answer to the Daisy, but it also, okay, yep, got to pull that back. Cannot play actions, cannot sing actions. Actions cannot be used. Yeah, it is easy to use. And so instead, we're going to bounce the Pete.
Oh, with the elephant.
With the elephant.
With the Madam Mim elephant.
Yeah. So Madam Mim Elephant, when you play this character, banish her or return so the typical Madam Mim, but at the start of your turn, remove up to 2 damage counters from this character to choose an opposing character. And its 3/7 stat line makes it very difficult to remove.
Wow, what I mean, a card we hadn't seen played a whole lot, but 3/7, that's a strong body.
Yeah, it's definitely a card. It's a really interesting card. It's difficult to remove, so you can push your Lord Turtle around a bit. But if it manages to challenge into things and it's left unchecked, it can slide damage counters around. It's pretty tricksy. So Chase here with not many cards available, but at 13 lore with 2 lore on the board, closer and closer to victory. So we'll get that Robin Hood on the board. 3, get that Peak Games referee, again preventing action there. Looks like we're going to now sing Friends from the other side with the elephant, draw 2 cards.
I want to highlight again that we are here at the Hunter Burton Memorial focusing on 988. This is a more casual environment, more fun. Players have been very forgiving to each other, and so just like in this instance, they didn't call a judge because they know it's more casual. You made a mistake, put the card back. We appreciate that here in this environment, but we're still competitive because we want to play as best as we can.
Oh my goodness! And it looks like we're scooping here. I'm gonna guess they're Chase without the answers. Asher managing to establish a pretty wide board state there. Looks like it had the game in the next turn or two. So 1-1 here. What a fantastic game! Whew, what a fantastic game! This is peak Lorcana. This pirate deck, it felt like it turned the corner in the mid game. Had all the energy, the amount of cards being drawn off the Daisy Ducks, off the Diablo. We did see Asher allow an extra 2 cards on that Diablo there, giving Chase extra gas, and Asher just having answer after answer after answer, keeping just enough, removing just enough to keep Chase from running away with the game, and eventually being able to, Chase runs out of gas a little bit, goes into top deck mode, and Asher able to pull out the last few cards he needs. What a great performance.
I mean, it was so close because on that one turn where he needed to top deck a location with Daisy in play, his deck had the opportunity for him to do that and did just that. Allowed him to top deck a location to draw cards. Imagine if that would have been another Diablo or another pirate that could have given resist. I mean, he had ink available to play on whatever card he may have drawn. And that's just such a great point with your list that you've got a deck that is so synergistic. It works together so seamlessly that your cards, whenever you are in top deck mode, are able to help you get to the next stage. But we couldn't quite see that come out for Chase. But wow, that list that he is playing, it's very strong. I think it's viable. We may see it later on.
I'm not gonna lie, it just looks fun to me too, right? Like you're playing pirates.
Yeah.
You've got Daisy pirate and you've got this pirate, and they're all doing pirate things, and Pete coming down and going to different locations, and like I don't know, like this kind of tribal decks they used to be called, these typal decks, pirates mattered. I mean, it just looks like a lot of fun. I gotta build it. Speaking of pirates, here we have one turn 1 with the typical pirate turn 1 play. That's Captain Hook. Forceful Duelist, one of the first cards we ever saw revealed for Disney Lorcana, still seeing play here in set 7. And Robin Hood coming down on the other side, the answer.
Again, we are here in round 5. We are in game 3. Excited to be here at the Hunter Burton Memorial Lorcana Championship, highlighting the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you or a loved one are experiencing suicidal ideation or are going through a mental health crisis, reach out to 988. They are there to help 24/7.
We have more pirate cards. Fire the cannons into Hook, dealing 2 damage. Now, of course, that won't remove it because of the hidden cove, but now when that cove is removed, that Forceful Duelist is gone, and now we will quest for 1 rather, with the Robin Hood.
Wow, having to use a fire the cannons on the Captain Hook. He'll be able to challenge and get rid of this Robin Hood, but gosh, that really is a 2-for-1 right there.
Yeah, it's unfortunately the hidden cove changes a lot of your math. Again, you're used to thinking about these cards in terms of, this card removes that card, this is 2 damage to remove that 2 damage thing, and the hidden cove just changes all of that. So yeah, it's something that has a huge effect on certain board states, and I think here, big effect here. So here comes the Cobra, though. We're going to discard an Along Came Zeus to get that extra 2 lore, pushing Asher up to 3, and now we have a 4/4 established on the board. Not enough to deal with that Cove on its own, but we'll do significant damage to it, and can remove that Smee. if Smee is exerted.
I'm surprised to discard the Lorcana Zeus. So many locations on Chase's side. I wonder what cards Asher has.
Yeah, I wonder. So we've seen Asher a bunch of times play the Cobra followed by singing the Friends from the Other Side to give himself some extra cards. Perhaps that's what he's looking to do here. But definitely Asher has played this deck all tournament as an aggressive deck, trying to maximize the value of that Cobra each and every time and get to 20 faster than, as fast as possible. One note, we see, some indication on the other side of the board, Chase pointing out there that although Smee is exerted, he does not take a damage at the end of the turn because Daisy, Pirate Captain, is a captain. So preventing that damage there. Also, Smee is a pirate, so questing on that location will give Chase a card off that Daisy Duck. So lots of synergy going on there. The location with the pirates and the damage and card draw and all of that. We see this deck, doing pirate synergy things. Ages ago, Ryan Miller, one of the brand manager for Disney Lorcana, was asked what his favorite deck in Lorcana is. And he said, this is like set 3. He said, well, my favorite deck right now is a pirate deck that I'm playing. And that's all the details he gave. And at the time, pirates weren't super great. There weren't a lot of them. And everybody, of course, Ryan was referring to cards that hadn't been printed yet. So everybody knew pirates, are going to be a fun thing. I wonder if this version of the pirate deck is what Ryan Miller had in mind at the time, because this deck is fun. Along came Zeus there, removing that Smee as well. The Cobra then challenging into the Hidden Cove, putting 4 damage onto it. Every pirate now that's on the board with the location and that Daisy Duck represents card draw every turn, so getting rid of one of those pirates at the very least helps with that. And we have more location and pirate synergy here. John Silver coming down will gain +1 lore and resist from that location. Strength of Raging Fire will deal 2 damage to that Cobra, and of course, 2 damage not enough to remove that Cobra on its own, but Cobra does have the vanishing ability because it is an illusion, meaning that when it's chosen for an effect or an ability, it is banished. Your opponent immediately seeing through that illusion, saying that's not a Cobra, that's a bunch of sand, and that sand heading down to the discard pile there. And now Chase here just dumping his hand on the board. We have a Diablo, we have a Smee, just a wide board state here. It's gonna be a lot to deal with.
Yeah, this is a great spot for Chase. I mean, the Diablo's wide board state, going to be able to draw. Asher's only got 2 cards in hand, 1 having been discarded due to Giant Cobra, choosing to gain the 2 lore. Does draw here, though, off the Merlin, but down to 1 after inking.
Let's see which way we choose to go here. We are going to challenge into the Daisy Duck. Get some damage on that. A Diablo, okay, not the worst card in the world. A location here would have been awful for Asher. So at the very least, we don't have that, but we are establishing a bit more of a board.
Wow, what a thing to say. We're a location over a Diablo.
Right? Yeah, it's true. Any location would have been brutal there. But luckily, just a Diablo.
Wow.
Oh, dear.
That's the state at which this deck is at. I mean, the Chase is piloting. This Emerald Stillus is... I like it. It's synergistic.
So here, again, we have that Exerted Diablo, and let's keep that in mind because there are plenty of cards to draw Asher cards in this matchup, so definitely have to think about that. Looks like we're going to West, though. Play the Snake, bounce the Elsa, so we're getting that lore out of it. Play the Elsa again, challenge into the Diablo, get rid of that before we draw cards. We are going to exert the other Diablo, because why not? The Rabbit's going to challenge into the Daisy. It already has 2 damage, so going to draw a card here. The correct sequencing of actions here, get rid of that Diablo before... Again, normally you always think draw cards first, but Asher finding a way to maximize the use of that Elsa, get the lore out of it, challenge into the Diablo, get it off the board before drawing a card from the Rabbit. So, great sequence there from Asher.
Yeah, Asher's been playing some great Lorcana all tournament long. I mean, we saw him on camera against Logan, played very well. Here he is against Chase, also playing well, but in a tighter spot.
Here we do have that location. Not as terrible, though, with the Daisy off the board, but it does allow the Diablo to challenge into that Elsa and remain on the board. Now, even if that Hidden Cove is removed, that Diablo is removed, that's going to be 1 card drawn off of it. And another John Silver coming into play will have an extra lore and resist for that 1 location to play. So just the locations here being used to maximum effect with all this location synergy. Back over to Asher. One thing, you talked about Asher's great play. One thing I'll note for those who missed it at the beginning, Asher is 14 years old and one of our youngest competitors here at the Hunter Burton tournament, and representing himself, acquitting himself very well against a very stacked field, 3-1 here, and playing one of the better players, I think you said, in the Dallas area, Chase.
Yeah, Chase has been a long time competitive player here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and glad to see him here for the Hunter Burton Memorial Lorcana Championship. Asher here with a Robin Hood champion of Sherwood. The board state is starting to balance out a little bit, but Chase still here with those 2 John Silvers. Any location, just like this in the Hidden Cove. More lore for him. That's it.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lore, 17. It's a lot of lore. Golly. Well.
Yeah, that was a match.
Wow.
I mean, Asher piloting so well, the Amethyst Steel that we've been seeing with the Challenger, wanting to get as many characters on the board, challenge in, and try to gain that free lore, especially with cards like Calhoun and Giant Cobra, but Helsing with the synergy.
Yeah, I mean, what a match. I mean, well done by both players. Very well played. I think both decks did kind of what they wanted to do, and it was just a really grindy control match in the middle. Both players, the game plan, I think, for Asher is to drive his lore total, as we said, try to close out the game as fast as possible and get within Goat and Cobra striking range. And forced into a control role because of the synergy that the Pirate deck had in every game that we saw. Although he tried to push his lore total early, he did a little bit of that. Really forced into a control role because the synergy in that Pirate deck is just so unreal that every single card, its threat becomes exponentially greater when your opponent drops the right cards on the board. And so the most innocuous card, even a Smee, which is it's just let's take Forceful Duelist. Even Forceful Duelist on his own is a 1/2, with Challenger 2, doesn't quest for much, sitting on the board there in the mid game. It's kind of like meh. It's just not going to do much good until your opponent drops a Daisy Duck in a location, and now that Forceful Duelist gets you a card, and it gets resist from other Pirate cards, and it just gets better. So it's really fascinating, watching how these games played out, and I'm going to take a look at that Pirate list.
I am too. I mean, the new dual-colored Pete, the 5/5
Yes.
resist. I mean, that card was amazing. I really think it made that Pirate synergy come to life. Because just like you were saying, the Daisy already drawn off locations, John Silver being a pirate, all that drawing, extra lore. That was fantastic. That was such an amazing game to watch, and I'll have to ask him for the list afterwards.
Yeah, right? Take a look. It just looks fun. It just looks fun.
Well, we want to thank y'all so much for being here today with 20 Lore Pro and the Illumineers as we are casting the Hunter Burton Memorial's Lorcana Championship. We want to highlight to you as a gaming community 988. It is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you or a loved one are struggling with suicidal ideation or mental health, reach out to the number 988. They're available to help you or your loved one 24/7. Again, thank y'all so much for your support. We have more rounds to come, followed by the top 8 today. We're about to start the starter deck tournament here in just a little bit. We have starter decks from set 1 all the way to the present.
I love that.
All donated by local stores. We want to thank our Enchanted sponsors so much for all that they do, and thank you, the viewers, for joining us. We will be back here in just a little bit.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I know I said we'd see you at the next feature match, but I'm back again with another amazing member of our Lorcana community, Squirrel Girl.
Yes, girl. Yes. Squirrel Girl is Disney because she's from Marvel, so it counts.
So I've heard, but I mean, can you kind of double as Bucky reincarnates?
Absolutely. Bucky is here with me, R.I.P., the errata. But yes, Bucky's with me today. I've got his card in here as well. So
That's amazing. So is this your first Hunter Burton, or have you come before?
This is my first Hunter Burton. I have been to lots of Lorcana events, but yeah, my first Hunter Burton, and everyone's been so nice. It's been really awesome.
Yeah, we were just talking with the director of charity operations about, the importance of kindness and inclusivity at these events, and I was telling him, I definitely feel like you can feel that for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Since I had never been to this event before, and I've never cosplayed before, it's my first time. I posted in the group on the Facebook and said, and I did it anonymously because I was like, I don't know. And I said, is it okay to cosplay? Is that welcome at the event? And everyone, it was like a flood of super nice comments. And I've had people be super nice here at the event. I've had people ask me to take a picture, and it's been really fun.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's get down to Lorcana.
Okay.
I know you were on a feature table earlier today. What deck are you playing? Remind me.
Steel Song.
Okay.
Yes. I played Steel Songs in set 1. It's what I feel most comfortable with. I did consider playing the item list with Blue Steel, and I played it for, weeks before this, just over and over and over. And so I feel like it prepared me to play against it, but really coming down to it, I just feel most comfortable playing Steel Song, and I want to have fun and not be stressing. So I went ahead and played my Steel Song, and I got to play against the item deck, and we went to 3, but I lost. So on stream.
So close. So close. How's the rest of your day going?
It's been going really well. I have some friends that are doing really great. I've won one. So hopefully I'll win my next one and be able to play tomorrow too. So
That's amazing. So this event is all about raising funds and awareness for suicide prevention. What kind of drew you to come up to Dallas? Because I know you're not from this area. What was it about this event specifically that drew you here?
I have a friend that told me about the event and the reason for the event, and I'm a nurse. I'm a forensic nurse, so I often care for people that have experienced assault or other forms of violence, and I know that there's a giant mental journey that goes on in the healing after that, and to know any event that's supporting, self-harm prevention and suicide awareness and prevention, I think is a worthy cause to support. I also read about Hunter, and I read the letter that Ian wrote on the website, and then I learned about Ian, and it just really touched me, honestly. And I think it's great, the attitude that everyone has here and the way they're fostering encouragement and kindness here, because these events can kind of be stressful sometimes, but everybody's been really nice. So
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us. I'm excited to hopefully see you on the feature table again tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit more about your deck and how the day's going. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We'll see you at the next feature match.